Have people been pretty interactive in the chat on YouTube?
Okay, it should be live now, and um, yeah, what I should do, I should.
Have people been pretty interactive in the chat on YouTube?
So yeah, I think it's going live.
Okay, it should be live now, and um, yeah, what I should do, I should have people been pretty interactive in the chat? So yeah, I think it's going live. Okay, it should be live.
So Ben, I think Ben is here. I see him. Um, okay. So the live link I can share if you need it with you right here in the chat.
Okay, cool.
And let's see.
Cool. Oh, Josh Mallard's here. Hi, Josh. I'll try to keep the chat on YouTube up on my phone off to the side. But I'm not gonna play the video because it'll freak me out when I see me.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Should we wait for?
Yeah, I'm cool waiting, or I'm cool talking about nonsense for like 10 minutes if you want me to.
Well, yeah, I think we can wait just a couple
Sure.
minutes and. Oh, just a quick question. Can I share the picture of cat, or I'm still not allowed to?
Yeah, let's not.
Okay. um, oh, Emily is here.
Hi, Emily.
uh, yeah, I, s- I think we can start maybe. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So, uh, hi, and thank you for coming here and talking to me and talking to the audience who's in the chat right now. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I, of course, this is about your music and you, and especially about Basil Eyes,
Mm.
which was premiered about 2 weeks ago. And I think we can also talk about other pieces of you. So yeah, um, I was reading your bio again and uh, uh, realized that you have this specific interest in agrarian writing and
Mm.
agriculture, um, and probably the nature and um, all that subject that I actually don't know much about. And I don't think I have asked you about that. And
Oh, yeah.
also um, that you were influenced by or inspired by Wendell Berry.
Mm.
So I thought that was very interesting, and I thought I should talk about that since I haven't really asked you about that, and I haven't asked you that question.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been a few years since I've actually read like Wendell Berry's writings and ideas about agriculture and stuff. But around the time that I was writing Orchard, which would have been 2018, and probably as far back as 2015, 16, about the time I was writing my tuba concerto, Loam, which is about earth, as in like soil. I was really interested in the writings of Wendell Berry, who is he's a really like an older gentleman. He's I think he's in his 80s, but he is an author. He writes fiction, but I've never read any of his fiction. I've read his poetry. His poetry is really beautiful, and it's also religious in a lot of ways, which isn't necessarily congruent with myself, but I find a lot of beauty in it. Uh, and his nonfiction essays, which are very much almost like radical environmentalism in a lot of ways. So he talks about he talks like about farming in these very like highly philosophical, intellectual ways, and protecting the land, and that nature has its own cycle, and that modern society has like forgotten these things. One thing that always sticks out to me is him talking about daylight savings time, which really messed things up for a lot of people when the government decided to do that. And I can understand why. But anyway, this whole interest of mine, I've never, I don't claim to be a farmer or agricultural person in any way, of course. I've never really done it at all in my life, but if you go back 2 or 3 generations in my family, it's all farmers. So a few years ago when I was learning about my ancestry, which is, as far as I can tell, almost all from Kentucky. My great grandfather was a farmer. His dad was a farmer. His dad was a farmer. And yeah, they took care of the land, and did their thing. So I think that's where my interest came from, and kind of a way of connecting with that part of my family, and my grandpa on the other side of my family. He's a farmer, and there's just a lot of farmers in my family, and so um, yeah, that's kind of where that interest came from, and I'm still learning about all that. I think my dream one day is to actually have a farm. Susanna and I talk about that sometimes. So, and of course, there's like more I don't know, obvious things in our society today where you know, farm to table restaurants and a emphasis on locality, and that's pretty ingrained in my my worldview, you know. So it's all kind of wrapped up together, but it's kind of led me as a composer down this path of trying to think about the way that the earth works and nature works, and translating that into my own musical voice through my music. So I guess in some ways, basil eyes could be an extension of that. You know, if you think about basil as a plant, though that's not really what the piece is about. But one of my most recent pieces, live oak for solo clarinet. You know, that's a tree. Orchard, that's a bunch of fruit. Loam, that's about soil. You know, so um, it's just kind of my way of I don't know, musically interpreting the world the world that I want to really want to be in, that I'm a little disconnected from, I guess. And by the way, I would highly recommend Wendell Berry's writing. It's really cool. So
Yeah, definitely. I will check it out. Um, yeah, it's interesting that you also remind me of what you told me just now and told us, remind me of um, what composer Hilary Tan, who's also a close friend of mine,
mm,
talks about her music and how her music was inspired by nature. And
mm,
she often think about the nature of her home country and her hometown, and also this nature that surrounds her in upstate New York. Uh,
yeah,
and there's, I think, interesting kind of parallel
mm,
between what you said and what she used to say, and she's still saying that, I think. Um, Also, you had this concert series, Tewa, and
yeah,
a lot of people are missing that, especially here in Tampa. And
yeah,
that's also, I think, um, uh, also probably it's um, continuation of what you just talked about, this about the earth and what grows in the earth
mm,
and soil, and then we eat.
mm,
Um, and then you had this nice pair between the drinks and music and
sure, yeah.
music.
Yeah, so I have to give Susanna Hancock, my partner, all the credit for Tewa. And I think she's watching, or she'll be tuning in momentarily. But Susanna tells the story of Tewa best, I think. So I'm going to kind of hopefully get it right. When Susanna was living in New York, she worked for a restaurant, and she attended a wine class where this, I guess, sommelier wine person was talking about the way they understand their work. And I think the quote is this person said that Tewa is how they make sense of the world, and Tewa is like a really big wine term, I guess, but you hear it. I mean, it's like food related, right? So Tewa is kind of this. It's this French word. If I don't know if there's like a really exact English translation, but you think about it like territory. It kind of looks like or like terra, like the earth. So it's kind of the whole uh, environment that like a specific crop grows in. So like the climate, the mineral content of the soil, the weather, you know, all this stuff, it contributes to the way like corn that grows in Kentucky tastes, or corn that grows in Nebraska. You know, it that might not be a great example, but you know, we when we talk about wine, we have all these different wine regions, right? And that's basically Tewa. So um, Susanna had this idea of, this is a great idea for a concert kind of series, that let's apply this to music. And she was telling me this idea, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So we did it. And yeah, it's kind of an emphasis on local food and beverage purveyors, so local chefs, local brewers, local breweries, bars, restaurants, and putting contemporary music into those spaces. We found that popping up at places tends to be like the most awesome events. And if we try to like pull things from like different places and put them in a new place, it's like um, it's not as fulfilling, I guess. It's really awesome to be able to make contemporary music inside of a bar, or inside of a brewery um, where like the kegs and the brewing equipment's like right there. And we did that with Ben Whiting and Melody Chow. Ben's in the chat. So that was one of my favorite Tewa concerts, because we had the Chaos Flute right in the back of Hidden Springs Brewery, and like all the brewing equipment was right there. And when we were talking about, oh, where do we set up, they were like, don't set up here, because if you get splashed with like hot brewing liquid, that's bad news. So we had to work around that. And there's interesting things. That's one example. uh but anyway, yeah, we actually haven't done a Tewa event since March of 2019. And then of course we moved away from Tampa, and we were finally in talks this past June. Well, we started talking in February about doing our first event up here in Cincinnati, Kentucky area. And of course COVID-19 happened. So personally, I don't feel safe enough to like sit down at a restaurant and eat. So I'm not gonna ask people to come listen to new music inside of a restaurant. And so we're just biding our time at this point. And but yeah, we're gonna come back. Our dream is to kind of be able to keep doing things in Tampa a little bit and do things up here, and kind of spread our wings a little bit, and um, see what happens. But yeah, we, like everyone else, we don't know when that's going to happen again. So
That's right. Yeah, but obviously we're missing it a lot,
yeah.
and we're missing live concerts these days, of
Hmm.
course. And um, but it's definitely very interesting, and um, still maybe a little bit sadly, still new ideas and
Mm,
um, new ways of doing concerts, because a lot of concerts still happening in the concert halls.
right.
So, but yeah, really looking forward to it after this pandemic is over.
Yeah, we're at the very least we'll be well rested, I guess.
That's right.
And have the energy to go hard.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but we mentioned the orchard a little bit, but
Mm,
I think definitely orchard is the example of this thought of the earth and fruit or plant
mm,
grow there, and then there's this taste of each fruit,
right.
and that's I think it just relates to everything that we talked about,
Mm,
the eating part, the growing things, agriculture, and different kind of sensation that you get from the fruit, different smell, texture, and all that.
right. Yeah. Yeah, the thing that people ask me a lot of times about orchard is, did you eat every fruit? And the answer is no. I didn't, because some are hard to find. Like mangosteen can barely make it like from its origin point to the United States, right? So I kind of had to read about I read about all the fruits, right? Like I did a lot of research on each fruit. When I could, I ate them, or like I had some kind of reference point, like yuzu is one of those fruits that you don't really see a lot in the United States. You see like yuzu type products though, so kind of reading about it and then like knowing, okay, this is like what it tastes like. It's like a weird floral lemon, right? So um, yeah, it ended up being all kinds of things that influenced the music of each piece. Um, like getting back to Mangosteen. Um, Mangosteens, you don't see them a lot in the United States because they go bad really quickly. So in that piece, you hear kind of these musical lines that they crescendo really, and then it slows down, and so it's like these layered polyrhythms that get slower and quieter, and it kind of just does that over and over again. And also the shape of fruit. I tried to like make musical lines shaped like different fruits. Um, so like tamarind, for example, or vanilla bean, you see a lot of like octaves in those pieces because those are like really long pod like fruit. Um, and then texture, of course, that's kind of an easy thing to make in the music. And then sometimes like where the fruit is from could have an influence. So yeah, thinking about all the fruits in all these different ways, and what it might sound like musically. Um, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling. But,
No, that's great. No, I enjoyed this. The Berber indication that you get usually in the
mm,
front of the piece when you learn a piece and perform a piece. Usually,
mm,
there's this Italian terms like vivace or andante,
yeah,
and then your piece, I get this sweet or
mm,
fragrant and light and all this fun indication. So
yeah.
it was really fun for me to.
And those words, I mean, I just took those descriptions from various definitions of each fruit, or like reading about it, like, oh, that sounds like an interesting word to turn into music. So they're like little tasting notes for each piece, right? So I mentioned like yuzu is floral, right? There's a lot of different floral fruits, and like floral ended up taking on like a musical character, and like it appears in each piece that is indicated floral, right? So I kind of, much like people know what vivace means, like when they see it on a page, or dolce. They have an idea of what that means. I kind of created like a continuity with these tasting notes throughout the whole of the collection. um, I'm not sure people hear that, but it helped me write it. So yeah, like floral has like tremolo, like really fluttery kind of, or like a sour. I'd make sure that there's like, oh, it's like kind of a nice sounding chord, but then like there's a note in there that's like kind of weird. Or like just that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully one day someone will analyze it. I don't know. Piano teachers out there listening, that's an opportunity, I
Cool.
guess.
Yeah. Well, can we hear some of them?
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, any requests? Any
Uh,
orchard requests? There's 50 of them.
right. Well, it's your pick that we talked about mangosteen, so maybe we
Sure.
hear mangosteen also, and yeah, those vanilla bean we could hear listen to that tamarind.
Sure.
Yeah,
Um, so these are freshly
yeah.
mastered.
So we could,
So if
yeah.
you're tuned in, you're going to be the first folks to hear this, I guess. So this is debut premiere. Okay, so here's Mangosteen. Like I said, mangosteens are quick perishing fruits, so you kind of hear each individual line die off, and then generally the meter gets slower, like triplets and quarter notes or whatever. So anyway, you can hear this. That
Um,
was, so that
yeah.
was yeah, that was Mangosteen. Because I'm a radio host, that was Mi Jung An performing. So got to give you all the information. Um, so yeah, like I said, I don't know if these tasting notes that I put in each piece come across, but another one of the I guess quick perishing fruits in orchard is fig, which Unmi you play all the time beautifully. And so in fig, you kind of hear, I guess there's a similar quality as Mangosteen. Like there's kind of decaying nature to the music, but also something we had to figure out was I composed like a quarter pedal, right? Sustain pedal, like barely any sustain pedal, and so that also kind of played into the idea um, of quick perishing fruit, I guess. So here's a little bit of fig. Well, I guess it's like a minute. I'll play the whole thing. And then it fades out. Um, I realized when I started editing all the audio for this that a lot of them just kind of fade out. So um, anyway, that was Fig from Orchard, and Unmi played that one. So
Yeah, we have a request. Okra. Um,
oh, okay.
yeah, by Benjamin Whiting. Wants to hear Okra.
Okay, so I'll say this. If you want me to kind of elaborate on some of
Sure.
these finer points, I guess because I haven't really had a chance to do this in a while. So um, when I was doing my research, you know, well, okay, so when I was growing up, a lot of people were like, "Oh, tomato's a fruit. Is tomato a fruit or a vegetable?" Like, and so people were like, "Well, tomato's actually a fruit, even though we eat it like a vegetable." And that kind of like that conversation worked its way into the piece because there's a lot of fruits apparently that are fruit, but we kind of eat them like vegetables, like cucumbers and eggplant, and so anything with a seed apparently is a fruit, which was a big bummer because I wanted to write a piece for rhubarb, but rhubarb is a vegetable, so um, maybe one day I'll write a bunch of vegetable pieces. But anyway, so okra is one of those fruits. Okra is a seed bearing plant, and we kind of use it like a vegetable. So in a lot of these, like here's poblano, ghost pepper, a lot of the pieces in orchard that are fruits but we think of as vegetables or treat them in culinary ways like vegetables end up having extended techniques. So that's kind of the rule that I set for myself. It's I think I break the rule a time or two, but um, okra, of course, is I think the descriptions are like slimy, seedy, da 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 da. There's another one. So I imagined kind of opening up an okra um, fruit, and you kind of have this slimy flesh. So there's this really, and they're also kind of shaped like a, I don't know how to make the shape on a camera, but they're kind of like banana shaped, I guess. They're like oblong and weird looking. So there's this really kind of angular music at the beginning that's played normally, but with a lot of sustain pedals. So that's kind of the slimy nature in my mind. And then you get to the inside, and there's all the seeds, and so halfway through this, you hear the pianist Christy Sally start uh, playing muted piano, and it's a similar kind of musical line as before, but it's muted. So those are like the seeds in my mind. So Ben, here's okra. So that was Christy Sally playing okra.
Oh, yeah. I love this okra was also one of my favorite.
Mm.
I love almost all of them, of course. I love all of them, but yeah, I really loved okra. I was very jealous of Christy playing, although I played quite many times in
Sure, yeah,
other places. But yeah, uh,
cool.
yeah. It's. I mean, do you want to play more from
Um,
that or?
yeah, I'm trying to think of maybe the ones that might be more interesting um, compositionally that I can kind of expound upon. You know, I kind of had a running list. Well, you can see like some of these on the screen, I think, but I had a list of like I really wanted to go for interesting fruits, right? I didn't want to just write about like a banana, um, though I might that might be fun. Um, so I really tried to like find truly like just like fruits that you don't really think of often, like juniper, right?
Hmm.
Or elderberry.
Hmm.
That's a piece that I discovered via Anne Duhamel, or star anise or lychee. These are all like kind of just really interesting, not common fruits or uncommon fruits. But then you'd have like some people requested a fruit, right? So Ina Song requested lemon, which is a very common fruit, and I was happy to oblige. But Ina also asked me to write her a waltz, which is not something that I ever like have interest in doing. um, or chayote squash. Um, Someone requested that I write a gospel inspired piece, and so like there's this kind of gospel. I guess I'll play just a little bit of each of these. So this is my waltz, my take on a waltz, I guess you could say. So Ina Song requested a waltz, and that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone. And then this is uh, I got a request for like a gospel piece, and this is what I came up with. So I guess my point is, some of these I kind of came in kind of having a very clear idea about what I wanted to do, um, like Yuzu. I that was the first one I wrote for no one in particular, and I kind of, it kind of fits in really in line with my musical interests. It's like very quiet and sparse and kind of weird. But then I would get requests for like a waltz or I don't know, just I don't know, just so or Andu Hamill asked me to write about all fruits from Minnesota. So I had to go like look up fruits native to Minnesota, and that's these 5, 20 through 24. So anyway, I guess we haven't really talked about how this was such an open project, but when I had this open as a commissioning consortium, each pianist could commission up to 5 pieces at various levels, and they could. There was a comment box where they could tell me what kind of piece they wanted, which was not a mistake, but it was risky, I think, because it opened the door for requests that maybe I'd never thought of, or requests that just push me outside of my comfort zone. So I'm actually really glad that I did that, because some of these pieces kind of take on a musical character that I would never ever dream of have written, dream of writing. But I did it, and I don't know, I like that. So yeah, that's Orchard. There's a lot to talk about with Orchard, so I won't get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, if you are interested in Orchard, you can go to Tyler's website, and um, there's a description about the project, or you can reach out to Tyler, or
Yeah, please.
reach out to me. And I have a lot to talk about Orchard as well. So yeah, but this also has been one of the coolest projects um, I have ever done. Actually, there are few projects I'm very proud of myself, and this was actually one of those. Um, so yeah, thank you. And
Oh, thank you.
um, with listening to this, and I have been listening to these pieces for editing and um, for the preparation of the album producing album,
Mm.
and um, and I also wanted to ask you about this, that I felt like um, we sometimes talk about that which composer has better taste, and I
Yeah.
sometimes talk about this like, is Chopin better than Liszt in terms of, and a lot of people say, although I think Liszt is great, that Chopin has really good taste,
Mm.
and that's in a way how I feel about your music. Also, when I learned Basil Eyes, that it has this very fine taste. I felt like it's
Oh, thank you.
very tasteful, and I remember that um, when I programmed this piece in concert at USF, when
Mm.
I programmed also Lansing McWilsk's piece, and I remember that he listened to some of the Orchard pieces, and he said, that you have these notes, they are just in the perfect place. And
Right.
yeah, that's how also I felt when I learned Basil Lights also, that it just
Mm.
feels so right. The notes are um, just feels very right to play these notes, and they just felt so natural. Um,
Mm.
so I don't know. Have you thought about this, or do you have actually this any composers that you think, oh, this composer has just absolutely amazing taste, or you can relate to these composers better than others? I don't know. I usually get that questions a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
ask me, oh, so who's your favorite composers? And I just hate that question. But
Yeah. Um, yeah, I hate that question too. I was afraid you were going to ask that. So, yeah, I guess to speak to I guess the point about kind of notes being in the right place. I don't know. I hate answering questions like that. But okay, so sometimes, there are pieces that I write and I try to work a system into it, right? Like a set of rules or something like that. Um, I think when I was coming out of grad school, I was really interested in that because up until grad school, all of my composing had been intuitive and kind of like I don't know. I was a very different composer before I got to grad school, and thankfully, Baljinder Sekon fixed me. um, but what I mean by that really is that that's when I really started learning about um, all these like the world of composition, and I didn't have a formal composition teacher up until I was a grad student at USF. So it was suddenly like a door opening and like falling out of an airplane or something. I don't know. It was just like a totally different environment and world. And, um, I started thinking about systems and music beyond, 12 tone music or even just serialism in general. So um, I, I think all my struggles with that, trying to build systems in music because I'm not very good at it, admittedly. But I think what it did was it turned my ear a different direction. It made me hear pitches and sounds a little bit differently. Um, I will say this about my compositional process. Uh, Probably the way that I compose the most is I sit down at a piano and I come up with all the pitches that I like. Maybe there's a chord progression or something like that, but I know that the pitches that I use, whether it's three notes at the same time or nine notes or 12 notes at the same time, um, I know that I like what I hear when they're played all at once, and then I kind of like step back from the piano and kind of freehand write by hand and I guess see what happens. See what happens is not the right way, but it kind of like let my imagination guide me at that point, right? So, at once I know like okay, here's all the pitches that I know like work really well together. I sit down with the paper and I don't have to think about that anymore. I think about other things. I think about musical texture. I think about the shape of the music. I think about um, the pace and the way things like work together. Um, and so I I know that doesn't answer your question about kind of how everything sounds like it's supposed to be there. um, but that's kind of I don't know if that's the reason that it's like that. I don't know why it's like that. I know that's a super lame answer as a composer to say that, but I'm not a fan of like the kind of like have to explain everything. Some things can be inexplicable, I guess. As far as the question about my favorite composer, um, Takamitsu really is kind of like oh, there's like a monument to Takamitsu in my head, and I love his music, and I don't aspire to write music like Takamitsu, but it I just think that the way it's like his when you listen to his music, it's like you're dropped into like a moment. It's not like something ramps up and then happens and then dies down and like it's music, but it's like you kind of jump into the woods and like stuff is happening, like nature is happening. It's very natural sounding to me. Um, And then I mean, other than that, I listen to a lot of music because of Modern Notebook, my radio show, and there'll be like pieces I get excited about. I think more than composers. I try my best not to make composers into like idols or like superstars because I think that's dangerous, especially like when we talk about Beethoven and Mozart, like super genius Mozart, and it's like Mozart was probably just like us in a lot of ways. And also, if I ever meet any of these composers, I don't want to like freak out and be like, "Oh my god, like a celebrity." So anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but I'll say this: the Spectral Quartet, string quartet, has a new album out with some really incredible music, and I've been listening through that a lot lately and putting it into my show. There's an Anthony Chung piece um, with string quartet and flute coming up this week. A little show promo here. That is just a really amazing piece. Really, there's just a ton of great string quartet music, I think. Gabriella Smith is writing really awesome. I think that's her name. Think about it. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know if you want to see like what I am enjoying. Just look at my radio show because that's the answer. um, so yeah,
Yeah, I thought it's kind of dumb question, but I always wanted to ask. I mean, I felt like I also cannot answer. Usually, I cannot answer the question if somebody asks me, so which composer do you like the best? Or
I th- I think it's one of those things that constantly changes and should be allowed to change. I think.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So.
yeah. But there are composers that I could relate to a little bit more, especially
Mhm.
when I play the piece and when I perform and learn, and I have to lead
Sure.
the piece for months. So, but yeah, well, about the basil eyes,
Mm.
that I thought it was perfect breeder for the
Oh yeah.
show was very intense, actually, and uh, could have been far out really to some people, but also it really gave me this space, not just for the listener, but for performer, for me, that I could kind of breathe and just enjoy that moment, um,
Yeah.
and not really driven by pieces, because other pieces were very, very intense, very driving.
Mm.
But then I can just really enjoy the moment. I can really enjoy what I was doing. I mean, I was enjoying other pieces, but really savoring that moment,
Mm.
when I played a piece. So that was really, I really loved that experience playing the piece.
Well, thank you. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about it being I don't know, like uh, well, I guess when we talk about things being like really far out or really adventurous or something, I think you're right. It's musically it's not that it's pretty like tame, right? It's just like just a really basic kind of piece. And that was kind of my goal because I saw the fact that you would be playing this melodica or recorder keyboard and piano at the same time. Like that seems very experimental to me. And so, I mean, I knew that composing for you, I literally could have done whatever I wanted, and you would do it. So, it's not that. I, well, I guess I don't know. I'm not trying to change the world with each piece, right? I'm trying to like nudge things a little bit because I don't know. That's just what I'm interested in doing. So the fact that I could use my own musical language and really a lot of the stuff I learned from writing Orchard in this piece, but make it weird, not weird. That's a bad way to put it. Make it kind of not cutting edge, but pushing the envelope a little bit by making you play two instruments at the same time, which I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's examples of that, but I'd never written a piece like that before. So um, yeah, but I really just wanted to. Um, I don't know what the goal was. I guess I did want to write this kind of sweet, introspective piece. When things in life in the world get crazy, I tend to be really introspective myself about that. I really dwell on things and just rather than like putting myself way outside of myself, I try to think, what can be done, just speaking in a broad way. So like with the pandemic, it's like, okay, I guess this is like just a time where I get to like sit and be with myself, right? So I guess the piece is kind of like that too. Um, but really, I guess the point of inspiration, um, where we were living, there was this cat in the neighborhood who was really sweet, and he had these really big, bright green eyes. And he would like wait for us at the door, and anytime we like pulled up in the driveway, he would come running and that kind of stuff. And just something about that, like especially once the pandemic started and we were home all the time. I just thought about this cat sometimes. So that's kind of where the basil eyes came from. Um, but I also thought that basil eyes was the first thing I thought of with the piece. Which is unusual. I came up with the title first, and to me, it's a very kind of beautifully evocative title. I think it could be like not programmatic at all, and I think it would like instill an image into their head of some kind. Um, so I think the musical character comes from that. It comes from this idea of basil eyes, um, and a combination of what I thought might have been like your favorite musical gestures from Orchard, um, and then how do I reconcile these two instruments that you're playing? So um, you know the very obvious idea that happens throughout the piece that I kind of just exploit like crazy is the melodica instrument kind of blossoms out of the decay of the piano. And I think in the score, I actually try to time it as best you can, so it's like a crossfade. Um, and that kind of happens a bunch through the piece, and then there's like a little melodic section where you're playing a melody and an accompaniment in one of your hands, and the melody in the other instrument. And then the last two bars I think are the best parts of the piece, where I do the opposite that I've done the whole time, right? Like the melodica swells and then the piano catches it and then it decays. So yeah, I'm not sure. That's all I can think to say. I don't know if you have any questions about the piece, but or anything else you want me to touch on with it.
Um, well, I thought, this is not question, but this is probably more of observation when I was
Mm,
writing the piece, that there is this gesture that occurs few times. And it's a similar gesture. And I don't know, it's a weird thing. I mean, I'm sure that performers probably would know what I'm talking about, but
mm,
when you do, when you repeat things,
mm,
there are numbers that feel just right when you repeat.
mm,
It could be the exactly same thing, and that happens when you play something like Mozart sonata, that you exactly copy, then you change the dynamic.
sure.
Or it could be similar gesture that you were repeating, and I just felt that how many times it repeats, um, and then how that kind of leads to something else that just felt really perfect to me. So I
Oh, thank you.
enjoyed that moment, and I when I was also reviewing the recordings and listening to the Kiwi from Orchard,
Mm,
that how this repeats actually feels just so natural and just so right. Um,
mm,
so I mean, for me, there this a lot of things that um, I really enjoyed playing. It's not just because it's a beautiful melody there. Of
mm,
course, there are, um, but there are this different sensations that performer experience.
mm.
Because I guess it's your job, so you get to feel those things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, a lot of this piece, as short as it is, and in a lot of ways as simple as it is, I was still tinkering quite a bit. I think there was at one point, I don't have the score in front of me, but there this repetitive section that happened kind of and it felt like it was missing something, so I started incorporating these like kind of arpeggios into it, and then it would, oh yeah, oh no, it's me. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's I think the bottom of the first page or maybe the second page. So yeah, I envisioned this kind of B section here, measure 21, where there's a melody and then there's like an accompaniment in the left hand. And I just had this melody begin, and it just did its thing, and stuff happened in the piano, and I was like, this is missing something, and then I ended up at the beginning of each phrase, I guess I would put these kind of flourishes, and I just played around with that, and that was like the secret ingredient that was missing, right? So um, I feel like as a composer you have two parts of your brain. Well, you have a lot of parts of your brain, I guess. um, but to put it simply, there's the creative side where you're creating something from nothing, and you're kind of playing in the mud a little bit, so to speak. And then there's like this very critical analyzer person. um, at least I have that, and that's why I can't listen to like MIDI playback while I'm composing, because then I just like start hating everything I do. So I think I got all of this piece out on the page, put it into finale, like kind of started listening to it, and then the analyzer, critical, like angel or devil on my shoulder, started like saying, "This is missing something," um, so yeah, I guess um, that's kind of how that's how I go about thinking about those moments. I listen to it like, what is this missing? What is there too much of something? And I kind of whittle away and add stuff, or you know I just compose. It's the composer thing to do.
Okay, maybe we can listen to the Basil Eyes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. um and this is from the premiere. um so it's going to be like Inception. You'll see the chat box on the side next to the chat box, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, I think we talk about an hour, so we can probably wrap it up. So everybody can go to bed.
Yeah.
um, do you have anything you wanna add before we close?
um, I don't think so. I really love composing for you, Unmi. So when you asked me to do this piece, I knew I had to. Also, I don't have anything else going on, so. But yeah, I mean, are there any questions in the chat, or I have
There,
it pulled up.
any question?
I just see Balgender Sakon too making the eye emoji.
Yeah, well, I all the time. Yeah. Anybody has any question for
and
us?
I,
Before we
I'm
start?
I'm happy to if anybody wants to email me, it's on my website. Um,
Mhm.
I'm happy to talk more about anything we've discussed the past hour, of course. So I try to be readily accessible. Oh, Logan's asking a question
Yeah,
here.
Tyler.
Logan Barrett asks, "What is pre-composition to you?" Or as a related question, what happens before you choose the notes? Um, that's I guess it's a good question. I kind of touched on this earlier when I was talking about picking out notes and stuff, picking out chords, which is just a big subjective mess. But I always um, kind of I'll get an idea for like a gesture or a sound, right? Like that's usually the first thing that happens is, oh, I want the piano to play loud, and then the melodica grows out of that. Like that's like the first thing I thought of for the piece we just heard. And then I sit down and I have a mess on my desk here. I'm trying to see if I have this. Um, yeah, I do. Sorry, everybody. And then I do something like this. This is basil eyes, actually. I don't know if it makes sense, but I do something like a kind of a compositional framework, just so I know, like right away, this is the big picture of the piece. But sometimes, like with my orchestra piece that I wrote about a year ago, year and a half ago, sometimes that piece, like a piece, will just simmer in my brain for months and months and months. It just kind of like cooks there in the back of my mind, and then when it comes time to like sit down and write it, it's like I don't want to say it's fully formed. Um, that's like a that's like a bad thing to. That's like a misconception, I guess. But I've really thought about these are the things I want to be, and I sit down and I like graph it out or something, and then start to come up with like the pitch, like the harmonic language, kind of the rhythmic ideas. Orchestration, I guess, is usually already given to me way before that. That's like the first thing. Write me a piece for piano and melodica, So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. I mean, pre-composition. Um, I don't know. I guess it could be different each and every piece. Every composer is different. I will say the Mark Applebaum piece pre-composition is awesome. I guess it's kind of like that. That's like the Logan. If you know that piece, it's always like that. It's like a tape piece where he's talking to himself.
Oh, are there any other questions, or should we? Um, I know there's kind of 10 seconds delay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if there's no other questions, I think we could close this
Awesome.
talk. And yeah, well, uh, look forward to Tewa.
Yeah, one day.
Can come and also look forward to tomorrow's show. I really enjoy try to listen to it every Sunday and learning new pieces and new composers. So it's been great education for me too. So
it's a blast. I love doing it. That's my favorite thing I do.
yeah.
So
So thank you for
yeah,
doing what you were doing. It's a great thing.
thanks for this. This is awesome.
Great. Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, I think we can say good night to everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Eight people.
Bye.